What happens when the man who built a bar chain from nothing ends up behind the counter and catches a bartender cheating customers for personal gain? Yarden Ross stood in the back office of his company's 6th location, staring at the security camera feed while pretending to be just another new trainee. He wore a thick beard, a buzz cut, and a pair of black-rimmed glasses. The voice coach he hired even helped him lower his pitch slightly. No one here had ever met him. This bar had opened only 6 months ago, and he hadn't stepped foot in it yet. He leaned against a mop bucket, watching the head bartender through the screen. "Ready to get started?" called out the assistant manager, a woman in her mid-30s named Fiona Myers. Yarden turned. "Yeah. Sorry. Just finishing my coffee." She smiled. "No worries, Derek. You'll be shadowing behind the bar today. We're short 2 staff, one's out with the flu, another just quit last week. So it's gonna be a bit of a trial by fire." Yarden nodded. "Sounds good." 3 years ago, Yarden had launched his first bar in a rundown strip mall. He poured every bit of savings into it. Working 16-hour days, he built a place known for fair prices, strong drinks, and staff who treated people right. When it worked, he expanded slowly, carefully. Now he had 6 locations, each one profitable. But lately, reviews at this newest bar had started slipping. Complaints about rude staff and weak drinks kept popping up. His district manager said it was just noise. But Yarden didn't trust second-hand words anymore. He stepped behind the bar and immediately picked up on the rhythm. The place had a rustic modern vibe, brick walls, Edison bulbs, and a long polished wood counter. He could still feel the bones of his original vision underneath it all. "Derek, this is Mason," Fiona said, pointing to a tall man wiping down the bar. "He's our head bartender. You'll be shadowing him." Mason didn't look up. "Hope you're fast. I don't have time to babysit." Yarden offered a hand. "Nice to meet you." Mason barely glanced at him. "Grab the rag and clean the bar. That end's sticky." Yarden didn't flinch. He'd dealt with worse during his first year. He got to work, listening closely to how Mason talked to customers. Mason had charm, slick, casual, like he'd done this forever. But something felt off. He was fast with pouring, almost too fast. And he kept glancing at the POS system before ringing anything in. Around 9, the Friday night crowd swelled. Yarden noticed Mason had a habit of distracting guests during pours, talking loudly, laughing, and turning slightly away from them. "Hey, can you pass me the gin?" Mason asked. Yarden handed over the bottle but watched closely. Mason reached under the bar, grabbed a clear container that looked like water, and topped off the drink before handing it to a woman waiting. She took a sip and frowned. "This is really weak. Can I get something else? Maybe a beer instead?" Mason chuckled. "You sure? That's house pour. But yeah, whatever you want." He dumped the drink out and rang up a beer. Yarden saw him pocket a folded bill from the register drawer as he did it. Later, when Mason stepped out to take a smoke break, Yarden turned to Fiona. "Hey," he said casually. "Quick question. You guys use water to cut the drinks?" Fiona blinked. "What? No. Never. Why?" He shook his head. "Nothing. Thought I saw something weird. Probably just new guy nerves." But inside, Yarden's stomach turned. He'd worked hard to build a brand people trusted. And here, someone was stealing both from the business and the customers. By midnight, Mason had poured at least a dozen drinks that Yarden suspected were watered down. He used the same trick every time: distract, pour, top off with clear liquid from a hidden container, ring in something else, pocket the difference. Yarden's hands were tight around a towel as he dried glasses. He wasn't sure what bothered him more, the theft or the fake smile Mason gave every customer, pretending nothing was wrong. After close, the 3 of them started cleaning up. Fiona stretched and locked the front door behind the last guest. "Busy night," she said. "You did good, Derek." "Thanks," Yarden said. "Quick question before I go. Do you guys do inventory often?" "Weekly," Fiona replied. "Why?" "No reason. Just curious how the numbers add up." Mason let out a short laugh. "They don't. They never do. But hey, that's bar life. People drink more than they remember." Yarden's jaw clenched. He knew exactly what that meant. He left that night with his heart pounding. Back in his car, he sat in silence for a long time. He didn't want to believe it, but he'd seen it with his own eyes. Tomorrow, he'd be back, and this time he wasn't letting it slide. Yarden arrived early the next evening, stepping through the employee entrance just before the first prep shift started. The back hallway lights flickered softly overhead, casting long shadows across the scuffed linoleum. He walked in with a fresh change of clothes and a silent decision already made. He wasn't going to just observe anymore. Tonight, he was going to push. Fiona was already in the supply closet, sorting bar towels and checking restock levels. She glanced over when he entered. "You're early," she said, eyebrows raised. "Wanted to see how things get set up," Yarden replied, setting down his bag. "Get a better feel for the flow." She adjusted the clipboard under her arm. "You're not wrong. Most people don't care about this part. But this is where the night's made or broken." Yarden nodded. "Do you usually do all this yourself?" "Pretty much. Mason doesn't come in until an hour before open. Says if the floor's not covered in glass, it's not worth his time." She didn't sound bitter, just tired. For the next hour, Yarden helped her with prep. Slicing fruit, checking the CO2 tanks, restocking napkins, counting clean glassware. It was clear Fiona knew the systems, but she was stretched thin. She moved quickly, efficiently, but without pause. When she finally sat down to sip from a plastic water bottle, Yarden took the chance. "Have you ever thought about asking for more help back here?" She leaned back against the wall, eyes closed. "Asked twice. Was told the budget's tight. Said we're not hitting margins yet." He didn't say anything. He couldn't. He had approved that budget based on numbers. Mason submitted numbers that were now highly suspect. By 6, the bar was half full. Mason strolled in with a duffel bag over one shoulder, laughing into his phone. He ignored both of them, heading straight for the back office. When he returned 15 minutes later, he was in uniform, sleeves rolled up, hair slicked back. "Hope you stretched," he said to Yarden. "It's gonna be packed tonight." Yarden kept his tone neutral. "Looking forward to it." They worked opposite ends of the bar, Fiona floating between them. At first, things seemed normal: fast orders, mild crowd, nothing unusual. But then Mason started shifting again. His movements got more erratic. He took over orders Yarden had already started. Corrected him in front of customers. Twice, he added extra charges to drinks after they were already made, brushing it off with a wink and a laugh. By 8, Yarden spotted the same trick from the night before, Mason using the container from under the bar. But this time, he caught a clearer view. It wasn't water, it was a cheap well vodka, the kind they didn't even stock officially. Which meant he'd brought it from outside. Yarden leaned into Fiona during a lull. "Do we use any off-brand vodka?" She looked confused. "No, we only carry 2. The house and the premium." "Why?" He didn't answer. Instead, he waited for Mason to step away again, then quietly reached under the bar and pulled the container out. The label was torn off, but the scent was unmistakable: bottom shelf vodka, the kind that went for $8 a bottle. Not only was Mason watering down drinks, he was replacing premium orders with homemade swill and pocketing the difference. Yarden returned the container without a word and kept working. An hour later, a group of college students came in. They ordered a round of top-shelf tequila shots. Mason took the order, poured from the premium bottle in full view, then swapped it mid-pour for the off-brand vodka in a clear bottle he pulled from behind the mixer rack. The students didn't notice. They cheered, downed the shots, and left a generous tip. Yarden tilted his head slightly. "You always keep the tequila back there?" he asked, motioning to the hidden bottle. Mason barely looked at him. "Easier access. You'll learn." Fiona passed behind them, wiping her hands on a bar towel as she moved to the register. "Hey," she said, eyes flicking to the shelf. "That's not our bottle, is it?" Mason turned to her slowly. "It's backup. I keep it in case the main runs out." She hesitated, then nodded uncertainly and walked off. The next hour passed slow and tense. Yarden watched customer after customer get shorted. Mason's routine was polished like he'd been doing it for months. And no one questioned it, not the guests, not the staff. Most of them trusted him. At 10, a middle-aged couple sat at the bar and ordered 2 old fashions. Yarden stepped in to make them, carefully measuring each ingredient. But Mason leaned over and dumped in a cheaper bourbon from a plastic bottle he'd stashed in the speed well. "Save the good stuff, man," he said low. "They won't know the difference." Yarden stared at him. "They asked for the top shelf." Mason didn't flinch. "You get paid to make drinks or to argue about them?" That was it. Yarden walked around the bar, stepped into the office, and picked up the landline. He called the district manager and told him to show up in 20 minutes. Alone. No warnings. When he returned, Mason was chatting with 2 women at the bar, pouring drinks with exaggerated flair. He caught Yarden's eye and gave a lazy nod. Yarden said nothing and kept working. At 10:30, the district manager, a man named Grant, walked in through the staff door. Yarden met him near the storage area. "We've got a problem," Yarden said, keeping his voice low. "I've confirmed theft, substitution of alcohol, and falsified orders. I need you to watch something firsthand." Grant followed him to a side angle of the bar where they could see but not be seen. Within minutes, Mason made another switch, pouring well liquor into a glass labeled as premium and then pocketing what looked like a tip from the register. Grant's jaw tensed. "Jesus," he muttered. "How long has this been going on?" "Long enough for this location to be underperforming by 20%, Yarden said. "I don't want an explanation. I want it stopped." They returned to the bar. Yarden walked up beside Mason, who was mid-pour. "Put the bottle down," Yarden said quietly. Mason glanced sideways. "What?" Grant stepped forward, expression hard. "You're done. Step away from the bar." Mason laughed, confused for a moment. "What is this, some kind of joke?" Yarden reached up and pulled off his glasses. The beard stayed, but the voice was his. "I'm the owner," he said. "And you just ran your last shift." Mason's face drained of color. Wait, what?" "You've been stealing from customers and from the business," Yarden said. "You've lied to management, violated liquor laws, and run a scam under our roof. You're fired. Now. And if you don't leave quietly, we'll call the police." Fiona stood frozen near the register, eyes wide. Mason opened his mouth, then closed it. He looked at Grant, then back at Yarden, but saw no room for maneuvering. Without another word, he grabbed his bag from the back room and left through the alley door. It was silent for several long seconds. Fiona finally spoke. "That was Mason?" Yarden nodded. "He was costing this place more than money." Grant looked at Fiona. "We'll need a full inventory and a detailed report starting tomorrow. But for tonight, just keep it steady." Yarden turned to her. "You're running things now. You've earned that." She blinked, stunned. What?" "You've kept this place afloat under pressure I didn't even see coming. That changes now." Fiona swallowed hard. "Okay. Yeah, I can do that." Yarden nodded once, then grabbed a rag and went back to cleaning the bar. There were still customers to serve, drinks to make, and trust to rebuild. The night wasn't over. Not yet. The next morning, Yarden didn't return to the bar as Derek. He walked in through the front door just before opening, clean-shaven, wearing his usual charcoal button-down and black coat. No disguise this time. The staff hadn't been told he was coming, but rumors had traveled fast overnight. Fiona was already inside, unlocking the cash drawer. She looked up, startled, then nodded once. "We're stocked and ready," she said. "I pulled a double last night to get the inventory logs caught up." Grant's expecting the final numbers by noon. Yarden stepped behind the bar, scanning the shelves. "Anything stand out?" She hesitated, then handed him a printed sheet. "Yeah, we were missing nearly 8 full liters of premium spirits. Stuff that should have been untouched. And the pour logs don't match what was sold." He glanced over the list. The losses weren't just financial, they pointed to how long Mason had been running his scheme. Several months, minimum, and no one had noticed. "Where's the rest of the team?" he asked. "Still coming in." "We're short too, so I called in one of the servers to help behind the bar part-time. She's done it before." Yarden folded the paper. Let's run this shift together. By 11, the bar was open. The first wave of regulars trickled in, mostly lunch crowd, a few remote workers, a couple older patrons who preferred quiet hours. Yarden worked side by side with Fiona, neither saying much. Each time a customer ordered, Fiona made the drink with precision, checking the bottles before and after every pour. Not out of paranoia, out of principle. It was clear she'd never been part of the problem. Around noon, a younger man in a company polo stepped behind the bar, trying to keep his movements casual. He was tall, wiry, maybe in his mid-20s. He gave a faint wave to Fiona. "Hey, I heard what happened last night. Just wanted to say sorry." I didn't really see it." Yarden nodded at him. "And you are?" "Caleb. I usually do floor service, but Mason had me cover the bar a couple times a week." Yarden kept his tone even. "You ever notice anything strange about how he worked?" Caleb looked at the floor. "Honestly, yeah, but I figured I was imagining it. He had this way of making you feel like you were the one not getting it. Fiona was restocking coasters. He'd shut you down if you asked questions. Said you were slowing things down." Yarden nodded slowly. "We're rebuilding how this place runs. That starts with transparency. You see something off, you speak up." Caleb nodded quickly. "Understood." The lunch shift passed without issue. Orders were clean, customers left satisfied, and the atmosphere already felt different. Tighter, more aware. But there was still something hanging over the room, the question of how it had gotten this far without anyone acting. After the crowd thinned, Yarden stepped into the back office and pulled up 3 months of transaction logs. He wanted to see who else had signed off on Mason's numbers. One name kept appearing, Jody Patel, assistant shift lead on weekends according to the schedule. He called Fiona in. "Tell me about Jody." Fiona leaned against the doorframe. "She's sharp, knows her numbers, but she never pushed back on Mason. Barely interacted with me, honestly. Just came in, did her thing, clocked out. She's on today? Scheduled for the late shift." Yarden nodded once. "Let her know I want to talk when she gets in." At 4:30, Jody arrived. She was in her early 30s, dressed crisply, her hair pulled into a tight ponytail. She walked in with a small backpack and a notebook, not looking surprised to see Yarden. "You're the owner," she said flatly. "I figured I'd be seeing you." They sat in the office. Fiona stayed out. Yarden wanted this one-on-one. "I've been reviewing the logs," he said. "You signed off on a lot of Mason's closing reports. Did you ever notice anything off?" Jody didn't answer right away. She folded her hands in her lap, expression unreadable. "I noticed," she said finally. Yarden didn't react. "Why didn't you say anything?" She looked him in the eye. "Because every time I did, he shut it down. Said he was following house policy. Said if I had a problem, I could take it up with the district manager. I did twice. Never heard back." Yarden's jaw shifted slightly. "You reported this to Grant?" "I left notes in the logbook. Once in January. Once last month. I didn't escalate it further because I didn't want to risk my job over something I couldn't prove." He sat back. "You still have those notes?" She opened her notebook and flipped to 2 pages, each with dates and short summaries. "I made copies. Just in case." He read them, then looked up. "You'll be moved to full floor supervisor starting next week. You had the right instincts. You just didn't have the support." Jody blinked. "Wait, you're not firing me. You raised concerns in the only way you thought you could. That's more than most did." She stood steadier now. "I won't let you down. I'm going to hold you to that." Shift change came at 6. The evening crew arrived, noticeably more alert than usual. The news had clearly made its way through everyone. Yarden stayed behind the bar, but this time he didn't touch a bottle. He watched, listened, took mental notes. Around 7, a group of off-duty staff from a nearby restaurant came in. One of them, a broad-shouldered man in a denim jacket, ordered a round of bourbon for the table. "Top shelf if you've got it," he said. Jody, now behind the bar, poured carefully, labeling each pour and logging it immediately. As she handed them over, the man frowned. "That's not how Mason used to do it. He'd hook us up. Jody didn't flinch. Mason doesn't work here anymore. The man gave a short laugh. Guess the good days are over. Yarden stepped forward. The good days are just starting. The man looked him over. You the new manager? I'm the reason Mason's gone. And if you're looking for free pours, you're in the wrong place. The man raised both hands. Noted. They left after one drink. Later that night, after close, Yarden gathered the team in the main room. Chairs were pulled around the bar, most people holding water or soda, still in uniform. I owe you all an apology, Yarden said. I built this business to be different, but I let distance and growth blind me to what was happening here. That won't happen again. No one interrupted. From now on, he continued, every shift lead gets direct access to senior management. If something feels wrong, you don't bury it. You speak up. If you're overworked, say so. If someone's treating you unfairly, we'll deal with it immediately. Caleb raised a hand. What about staffing? We've been stretched for weeks. Yarden nodded. We're hiring. Starting next week, we'll rotate shifts better. No more double coverage gaps. No one works 6 days straight again. Jody glanced toward Fiona. What about tips? Mason used to shuffle them around. Said it was house policy to pool, but it always felt off. Yarden turned to Fiona. Track the tips by station. We'll switch to direct distribution. No more pooling unless everyone agrees. Someone in the back exhaled loudly. Yarden looked at each of them. This place works because of you, not because of branding or drink menus. You. And I won't forget that again. The room stayed quiet for a moment. Then Fiona stood up. We've got a long way to go, but this is a start. The others nodded, murmurs of agreement passing through. Yarden didn't smile. He didn't need to. He just looked around the room and saw something he hadn't seen when he walked in 2 days ago. A team worth rebuilding around. The following week unfolded with cautious momentum. Yarden returned to his usual schedule: early mornings, office meetings, site visits, but now, the 6th location sat high on his priority list. Every other day he dropped in unannounced. Not as a secret shopper, just himself. He didn't hover, didn't micromanage. He watched. Tuesday afternoon, he arrived just before the prep shift started. Fiona was setting up garnishes at the service station. She didn't pause when he walked in, but her voice was different now, more grounded, less guarded. Inventory checks are holding steady, she said. The new bartender starts Friday. Came recommended by one of our leads from the 2nd location. Yarden nodded. Good. How's the coverage looking until then? She wiped a lemon wedge off her hand. Jody's been picking up the slack on weekends and Caleb's been handling the early shift bar with me. It's tight, but we're holding. Yarden leaned on the counter. If it's too tight, say so. Fiona gave a small shake of her head. Not yet, but we're close. One sick call and we'll have to close the section. He stepped back. Then let's not get to that point. I'll move up the next hire interview to tomorrow. You'll sit in. Fiona looked at him for a beat. You sure you want me doing that? You already are. Might as well make it official. That evening, the crowd came in steady but not overwhelming. Jody worked the bar, this time alongside a trainee, an early 20s student named Lily who'd been shadowing for 2 days. Yarden stood at a side table watching how they interacted. Jody was direct but patient, correcting small mistakes without condescension. You only need 1 dash of bitters, she said, adjusting Lily's pour. Otherwise, it overpowers the citrus. Lily nodded, repeating the step. Yarden stepped forward after the customer left. How's she doing? Jody wiped down the bar. Fast learner. Just needs reps. She's not afraid to ask when she doesn't know something. He turned to Lily. You comfortable on the bar yet? Almost. I've served before but never mixed. Jody's been walking me through it. Yarden gave a short nod. Keep listening to her. She's earned her spot. He moved to the back office to review the latest shift logs. No mismatches. No unexplained shortages. The notes were clear and detailed now. He closed the binder and stepped out just as the front door opened and a man walked in mid-40s, business casual, carrying a clipboard. Yarden met him near the register. "You must be the inspector." The man gave a quick nod. "Liquor commission. Routine check. We flagged this location for review after an anonymous complaint last month." Yarden gestured toward the bar. "You're welcome to check anything you need." The inspector took his time. He tested pour sizes, verified bottle seals, reviewed license visibility, and watched the bartenders work. After nearly 40 minutes, he stepped aside with Yarden. "Everything's in order," he said. "Whatever issue you had before, it's been corrected." Yarden didn't ask who filed the complaint. He already knew. "Appreciate you coming out." The inspector tucked away his paperwork. "One thing I'll say, you caught it just in time. We've shut down places for less." As the man left, Yarden turned and saw Caleb wiping down a table near the front window. He walked over. "You've been quiet the last couple nights," Yarden said. Caleb looked up. "Just trying to keep up. I've been covering half my shift solo." "You feeling burned out?" Caleb hesitated. "A little. I'm not used to this many doubles. But I didn't want to complain. Not after everything." Yarden nodded. "You're not complaining. You're giving me information. Take Friday off. Full day. Paid." Caleb blinked. "Seriously. You've earned it. We'll cover you." Later that night, Fiona pulled him aside after last call. She looked tired, but there was no edge to it anymore. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Go ahead. Why'd you come in undercover instead of just asking for reports?" He leaned against the counter. "Because I stopped trusting reports. They tell you what someone wants you to see, not what's actually happening." She nodded slowly. "You're not like most owners." "I used to be." She didn't argue. The next morning, Yarden sat across from a new applicant, a woman named Tanya, former bar lead from a hotel downtown. Her references were solid and her answers were sharp. When asked how she handled dishonest staff, she didn't hesitate. "You deal with it directly, quietly but firmly. You don't let it fester." Fiona, seated beside him, gave a subtle glance. Yarden caught it. He closed the file. "We'll start you on Saturday. Trial shift. If it works out, we'll roll you into the regular rotation." Tanya nodded once. "I'll be ready." After she left, Fiona leaned back in her chair. "She's got presence. That's what we need right now." By the weekend, the bar had stabilized. Not perfect, but steady. Fiona ran the floor with confidence. Jody led the bar team through a packed Saturday night without a single comped drink. Tanya moved efficiently through her first night, needing only minimal correction. Near closing, Yarden stepped out for a breath of air. The alley was quiet. No deliveries. No noise. Just the soft hum of a city slowing down. He heard the back door open behind him. Jody joined him, sipping from a water bottle. "Didn't think you'd still be here. Wanted to see how the night ended." She leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "You think it's fixed?" He exhaled slowly. "It's better. Fix comes later." She nodded. "I was ready to quit. Before all this. Why didn't you?" "I thought maybe if I stayed, someone would notice." He looked over at her. They did. Back inside, the team was closing down. No one rushed. No one cut corners. The music was low, the lights dimmed, and the atmosphere was calm in a way it hadn't been in weeks. Yarden looked around one last time before heading out. The bar didn't feel haunted anymore. It felt like his again. Not because the problems were gone, but because the right people were finally in place to face them. And this time he'd be paying closer attention.